Looking good. Italian job.
I'm feeling good, Tommy boy. How are you, my friend?
I'm great. Trying to figure out what the weather is and all that fun stuff. But it's been a heck of a week. Had a great cafeteria today. Excellent conversation about accountability and honesty and education. Once you learn, you can't unlearn. So really good stuff there. Excited about Grow Rock 26 around the corner. Excited about today's conversation, which we'll jump into momentarily. I've got a big CSOP event coming up next Saturday, the 19th here in Greensboro. Going to tackle 54-mile Selma Memorial Ruck. So hopefully I'll be here next week to live to tell the tale. But yeah, it's, I feel like this time of year, everything's going on. As it gets warmer, that's a good place to be. I love March, love St. Patrick's Day. The Irish guy in me is a big fan. But enough about me. Our tens of listeners want to hear about you as well. How's your week been?
Listen, I understand we've moved from tens of listeners to maybe 11s of listeners. So
yes,
for anybody who's listening, news. Hey, thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. Tommy Boy and I like to talk about stuff worth trying. You'll hear us periodically throw in some references to some 80s hair bands or some 90s Adam Sandler movies, whatever it is. It's always the good stuff. So we're glad you're on board listening today. As far as what's going on in my world, I feel like it's been a week of Mondays. Honestly, it feels like a month of Mondays. It's constantly something. But today we're excited to talk about something that we've seen grow exponentially over the last few years. We're talking with Radar. And Radar is out of Waxhaw, North Carolina, or the Waxhaws, depending on where you're from. And he's talking to us about F3 Dads Camp. So Radar, to start it off, what's your name? How'd you get the name Radar? Give us your F3, your statistics, how long you've been doing it and that kind of good stuff.
All right. Believe it or not, I got EH'd by an F3 sticker. Was driving through Charlotte back in 2012 and saw an F3 sticker on the back of a pickup truck. And I'm a prior service guy. I was active duty Army for 5 years. And when I saw that military font, I was like, let me check this out. So I Googled F3 and it came up fitness, fellowship, and faith. And I said, I needed all three of those. So I went and Googled it and I saw that it was still in metro area with just a smattering of stuff in Matthews back in 2012. And I was like, I can't make that happen from Monroe. So I just kind of put it on a shelf. Well, flash forward a few years and my wife sees the F3 logo on somebody's shirt at church. And so she's like, you should Google that again and find out if it's close because it's close enough to show up at our church. So I Google it again and I find a workout. And I go meet the guys from F3 on a Monday morning, and I've been with it ever since. And that was about 5 years ago this August. So they gave me the name Radar. I was active duty Army for 5 years. I served in South Korea. I wear glasses. I'm bald. I'm short. I love teddy bears and some great knee high. But it also helps that I was trained to service radar equipment. So all the things. I got all the things.
You were there on a creative day, it sounds like. That's funny. Well, I remember speaking to several years ago, you said 5 years coming up in August, hearing rumblings of this thing called F3 Dads Camp. And due to whatever timeline, whatever, I could not attend. But boy, I will never forget the first time I posted after the men from Greensboro attended and came back. That's all I heard about for a solid year. They were already fired up, signed up for the following year, the memories they had with your kids, so on and so forth. So, one of the things that makes the Stuff We're Trying podcast special is when PACs reach out and say, we want to talk a little bit about blank. And so when I saw your message come through the Slack channels about Dad's Camp, I thought perfect timing. We get to get ahead of the curve, share with the guys what's coming up this year. We'll talk a little bit about regions that are interested in starting in their area, a Dad's Camp, how they can find resources there as well. But tip of the cap to you for A, speaking up, and B, for being on the show today to talk a little bit about this thing. So without further ado, why don't you give us the 50,000 foot view of what even is F3 Dad's Camp?
So I want to tell you a little bit about my history with Dad's Camp, but I'm going to tell you what it is first.
Perfect.
What F3 Dad's Camp is it is an opportunity for dads in F3, of course, to come out and have a weekend of adventure and excitement with their kids, doing stuff at a typical YMCA camp and just connecting with them, getting out into the outdoors, spending time, going through life together. And it's a Friday night to a Sunday morning, and it's just you and your kids. So it's a great time to connect. You can do stuff. I mean, you don't have to do anything that's on the agenda. You can bring your own fishing pole and just go fishing for the whole weekend with your kids, if there's a fishing hole there. So that's really what it's about. It's about F3 dads being able to connect with their 2.0s. And,
nice.
It's a pretty awesome experience. So for me, my history with it is I had heard of F3 Dad's Camp, but I didn't know anything about it. And there's a guy in my region by the name of Paper Jam, and Paper Jam would post on Slack. He'd show pictures of like camping events and things like that they'd go on, and I'd always catch it after the fact. This is the photos from the trip. And so I messaged him on Slack, and I was like, how do I get on the front end of this so that I can actually go to one of these events? And he said, well, you could just queue one yourself. And so whenever quarantine hit and COVID hit, they shut it down. There was no Dad's Camp in 2020. 2021's coming around, and the guy that usually led it was a fella named Thin Mint, great guy. And Thin Mint out of SOB, he said, I can't queue Dad's Camp. I need somebody to step up. Without having any idea of what Dad's Camp was or how much it entailed, I said, I'm your guy. I'll be your Huckleberry. So he's like, excellent. And then he kind of dumps this whole information dump on me, and he's like, here's what it is. Don't worry, I got your six. And so I take it on, and man, it was amazing. It was kind of overwhelming, just all the stuff that we did. I had a great shared leadership team though. I got a group of guys, like 15 guys from the Waxhaw region to help me with different things. I basically assigned a queue of just about everything there was. And so we ran it kind of like you'd run a region, or maybe like a project manager would run a project. And that's how we got the 2021 Dad's Camp to happen. You had asked, how many years has it been? This year will be the 9th annual. It actually started in 2012, but because they skipped 2020, we're only on number 9. This one's going to be led, hopefully, by the men out of Lexington, South Carolina. Whenever I had talked to Thin Mint, one of his ideas was, instead of keeping it central to one region, we can pass this thing around and let other men lead, just like we, do a workout, rotating fashion. So the group that had the largest numbers there from the 21 Dad's Camp was Lexington. And so I got in touch with one of the guys from Lexington, and I'm like, here's the shovel flag. You're the guy. And I got the 6. So
outstanding.
So, we're going to see how we're going to pull it off. It's going to happen this year, August 19th through the 21st. So that's a Friday night through a Sunday morning. And that's going to be the 9th annual one. So
that's awesome for a lot of reasons, but real quick. And then IJ, I'll throw it to you. If guys always wonder why we constantly repeat Q source material and vape and our credo and our core principles, it's because they work. You just ran down how you took something that you were only familiar with via photographs and ran it with a shared leadership team and with support and with somebody watching your 6. All these things matter, fellas. So A, I love that. B, the idea that you stepped up and did exactly what we push, which is being free to lead, and turned it into and carried the torch, I should say. And here you are handing it off for the 9th annual. So I salute that. And IJ, I pass it over to you, my friend.
Yeah, TB, to throw into that, that's exactly what I was thinking. I mean, there's a need and he fills it. You know, it's one of those things. Hey, that's a great idea. Why don't you cue it? You know, we hear that all the time. So Radar, you kind of mentioned it's a time to bond with your 2.0s. And so a few questions. One, is it daughters and sons? Is it only sons? Is it only daughters? So that's the first question. And then walk us through, what does it look like? What kind of events would a Friday night through Saturday morning dad's camp look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that we have dad's camp here, the way that we do it in central North Carolina, because there's also an eastern version at Camp Seagull, and there's a western version at Camp Timberlake. Yeah, Camp Timberlake. And so, I'm not sure how they do it at theirs, but the way we do it here is it is guys and gals, or boys and girls 2.0s. It affects the way that we do some of the cabin assignments. We'll talk about that later because I'm sure people are interested to know about that. But way we do it, there's no age limit. You can do any age, but as the dad, we ask you to know your kids. So know how young is too young. Like, they're going to have to sleep in an unfamiliar place. So obviously, if you have a little kid, that's not going to go over too well. If you have an older kid who you don't feel like the camp will hold their attention because they're like 18 or so, you don't really want to bring them either. But, a good range is like, I'd say between 7 to 15. But that's just ballpark. That's not hard and fast. What they do for the weekend is we have kind of a welcome party. So everybody comes in, and the first thing you do is you kind of check in and you find your cabin. You take your stuff, you dump it at the cabin, and then you come to a pizza party. And at the pizza party, there's live music. And so to have pizza, live music, and everybody's just kind of finding their way around, getting their place set up, stuff like that. And then they do some announcements, and then there's typically a bonfire with s'mores. You bring your own s'more kits. And so you have a fire, you smoke up the marshmallows, and you just have a good time. You turn in for the night, and the next morning, what do we do in F3? We have a workout. So we have a workout, and it's with the 2.0s and with the dads, of course. And so they're out there, bonding and sweating, having a good time. And then after that, they have camp activities. And so, like I said, we do it at Camp Thunderbird here in the Charlotte area. And Thunderbird has things like slip and slide. They have a giant water slide. They got canoeing and kayaking. And unfortunately, there's no swimming, but they have fishing as well. They have range things like archery and BBs that lots of kids love. They have a climbing tower. They got some obstacle course stuff. So it's pretty cool. Just all the different things that they have there. And then, so most of Saturday is spent doing those activities. And then later in the afternoon, what we typically have is like a carnival where a company brings a bunch of inflatables, and they have just different like carnival tasks, like there's whack-a-mole, and there's like a giant jousting thing. And there was this wrecking ball thing where you had people on pedestals and knocking each other off. It was really cool. Some dads on the side were kind of making wagers on whether or not kids would get knocked off. Anyways, long and short of it, that's a great time as well, that they just, have this little carnival. And then the way that we end Saturday is a movie. They have an inflatable screen that they blow up, and a projector that they set up, and then they play, somebody picks a movie, we play that movie. And then we call it a night. You have popcorn, obviously, at the movie. And then Sunday morning, basically you just have breakfast, and you can go and do more events. A lot of the dads, though, they just, clean everything up. They get everybody packed up, and they start heading back home Sunday mornings. Now, some dads, little inside hint, some dads know that since most dads are leaving to go back home, if you just hang out, you can kind of run the camp and do whatever events you want for as long as you want, because we have usually the camp reserved until around noonish. And so that's a good 2-3 hours that you're just doing your thing with your kids. And a lot of dads, they don't know that because they're hauling out. And so that's it. I mean, that's kind of the weekend in a nutshell.
That right
Dad's
there
camp
is a
sounds a
pro
lot.
tip.
Yeah, no doubt. Dad's camp sounds a lot like Grow Ruck. That's pretty
Little
cool.
little bit.
I mean, the movies, the s'mores, the popcorn.
Yeah,
just
that's,
Don't
that's
tell all the
basically a
secrets.
grow up.
Don't tell all our secrets, Tommy Boy and Radar. I mean,
My bad.
Listen, you forgot about cuddle time.
Well,
You know,
right.
that happens.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's Grow Ruck
front-facing
in a nutshell.
Front-facing partner carries, we like to call it, but it's all good.
The
So-
Easter feet one might be a little bit different for you guys. So
Guarantee it. So listen, when we find a need, fill a need, we want to give it away as well. So the hope here is that we can see Dad's Camp expand across F3 Nation. Maybe because we could go on forever, and our goal is to connect guys who are curious with the resources, i.e. yourself or anybody else who's led and wants to share. But maybe top 3 tips for anybody who's interested in planting a Dad's Camp shovel flag in their area.
yeah, so absolutely. This is stuff worth trying. So I actually connected with the guy that helped me lead this Dad's Camp, which is Thin Mint out of SOB. And I asked him, I said, if you had anything to share, what would you share? Because he's done this way more times than I have. I just did it the 1 year, but I had never been to that camp. I did it all sight unseen, so it was kind of a crazy experience, but it was awesome. He says, make sure that you lean on the knowledge of those who have experienced how the camp is run before. And that was one of the things that I had on my shared leadership team, is I had a guy that actually participated with the previous year. And so he kind of knew the ins and outs of how things went. He actually didn't go to Dad's Camp with us because his son had aged out, but he still was my backup guy. And I said, hey, how did you guys do this last year? How did they do this, 2 years ago or whatever? And he knew. So that's a plus. If you have that in your back pocket, that's a great thing to have. One of the really important things is finding a good camp that will partner with you, and they believe in what you're doing, which is connecting with your kids. If it's a camp that's just out for a paycheck or something like that, just move on. You don't want to really waste your time there. But if it's like a YMCA camp or something like that, and their interest is, building relationships, bonding with your kids, having adventures together, shared experiences, that's where you want to go. That's where you want to put your time and effort in. Don't be afraid to ask for help, both before, during, and after. Don't try to lone gun it. Build yourself a team. I had 15 guys, and some of those guys even had other guys that come along and help them. And I had a queue that was just the check-in queue. He also did the guidebook. I had a queue that was in charge of announcements. I had a queue that was in charge of the music. I had a queue that was in charge of the pizza party. I had 2 guys queue the water, so there was constantly water being replenished because it had water bottles and coolers set up all around the site. I had a queue that was in charge, or 2 guys in charge of T-shirts. We actually decided to do a mud gear order as a bulk order, and so they got all picked up by one of the queues of the T-shirt, and they distributed them right there. I don't know if that's the best way to do it, but that's how we did it. I had 3 guys queue the workouts because we had 360 campers show up. 135 of them were the dads, and that was from 19 regions. So don't be afraid to ask guys, hey, I need you to queue this workout. We had a guy that was a queue just of the carnival. We had a guy that was in charge of the movie and the popcorn. I had a guy that actually didn't go as well, but he was really tech savvy. So he was in charge of the registration and cabin assignments. So, I doled out all the work. And all I had to do was I had to make sure that these guys stayed informed, and they stayed, abreast of any changes that we made. And if they had problems, I would find a solution. So don't be afraid to ask for help. But always remember, whenever it gets hard, you are creating experience and subsequent memories for these dads and for their kids that's going to last them a lifetime. So, when it gets hard, it's on purpose. I mean, there's a purpose behind it. You have a why. Now, I will say that if you haven't done any kind of outdoor event, like an F3 Dad Take Your 2.0s out event, just take them out on a camping trip. There's another guy in Metro named GOP. He's a great outdoorsman, loves going on events and things like that. And GOP might be a guy you might want to connect with somewhere down the road to talk about just taking 2.0s on a camping trip. Because this is Dad's Camp isn't really a camping trip. It's like a camping trip kind of on steroids, I guess. I don't know. Because you're doing all these crazy adventures, climbing wall stuff, just everything. But you can just if you're somewhere where they don't have a YMCA camp that you can connect with, just, connect with a group of dads and say, hey, let's go on a camping trip together. Let's just sit around a fire with our kids and make some memories. And so there's somewhere you can start.
Yeah. Yeah. And to your point too, I think a lot of the things that have grown, I mean, you said 300 plus people, which is phenomenal. Oftentimes start very small. And the beauty of that is you can fail small so that you can be hugely successful on a grand scale.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I love it. The cool thing about Stuff We're Trying to me is seeing how things transition from one region to the next and the subtle nuances, or sometimes a completely different looking event or CSOP or what have you, just because it all started with a conversation with a couple of guys sharing an idea. So I dig it. You mentioned you're creating memories, lifelong memories. I've certainly heard phenomenal stories out of from some guys out of Greensboro. Is there one story that you've had or witnessed that you wouldn't mind sharing?
I don't have anything that really tops, off the top of my head. I had a lot of dads that came to me whenever we had Dad's Camp last year, and they were just, extremely grateful because they didn't get to have one in 2020 because of COVID. And so they were like, we were worried this wasn't going to happen again. This means a lot to my family. We've been doing this for years, 2-3 years, whatever the case may be. And so they were worried whenever they didn't have one in 2020 that it might not come back, And so I had all these dads come up, and a lot of them had seen the call go out from ThinMet, and, they didn't answer the call because, X, Y, or Z, but they were like, thank you for stepping up. And it just kind of blew me away because I just saw a need.
Yeah.
But
those are the things that I hear. One of my favorite that seems to be echoed a lot is just how great it is for a man to see his kids as they witness what a positive male role model looks like, that their dad is surrounded by excellent men. And the lessons that they've heard come out of his mouth are being repeated by them. And there's just something powerful about that. You transition from, I don't know, it's almost superhero status that you're trying to figure this out, building the plane as you fly it. But your kids see that you're surrounded by a support system of like-minded men who just want the best for their kids.
Yeah.
And that's pretty incredible.
I like that you've got small kids who've never experienced something like this. This is their first time doing a camping overnight out of the house type trip. And then you have the kids, this is their last time before they go off to, I'm too cool to be with my dad anymore.
Yeah.
So you've got the gamut. You're covering it from, this is the first time the kid's been away from mom for a night. And then this is the last trip that I get to take with my son or my daughter before they don't want anything to do with me until I'm 25 or vice versa. But it's one of those things that I love, the concept that you've got kids and young adults, and all of them are witnessing, just like you were saying, TB, witnessing their dads are cool. Their dads are superheroes, and they're hanging out with other superheroes. You're showing your little boys what it means to be a man. You're showing your little girls what they need to look for in a husband, which is just so cool. Now, I'm going to come at it from a perspective of, okay, so I want to do this. I can't wait to do this. My daughter's ready to do this, but my wife has some questions. My wife wants to know, how is my 8-year-old going to be 8-year-old daughter? Where's she going to shower? What is she going to do? How is she going to make sure that, how are you going to make sure that she's safe? And, so walk us through the cabin assignments, little boys, little girls, the kind of the ins and outs. The M's might ask some questions, and we have to have something in our back pockets instead of saying, I don't know. It's going to be really cool. So walk us through that, Radar.
Well, so obviously, you can get objections to, I can't believe you're taking our son or daughter off on this adventure, whatever. You can always get objections. You just have to kind of step up and say, I'm their dad. They're going to be okay. And if that objection, if that answer doesn't work, I don't know that I can help you too much, but, but in all seriousness, what we do is we actually try to give the opportunity for people that know each other to kind of cabin together. So if you have another dad in F3 and you're already connected to their kids, whether they're boys and girls or whatever the case may be, you're going to be sharing, you can request to share a cabin together. And so kids will know kids, and, we're good men. So we're going to make sure our kids are safe. We're going to make sure that they're taken care of. If you've got a guy and girl mix type situation where you're sharing a cabin with other dads, you know that those dads are going to watch out for your kids, and you're going to watch out for their kids. So that's going to be okay. Now, if you have a situation where it wasn't a requested cabin, this is the first time you've ever gone, and you don't really know anybody there, what we typically try to do whenever we do cabin assignments is we try to keep them gender connected. And so you'll just have dads and daughters in one cabin that's like a new group of people that never came before. And then you'll get to most likely meet somebody from another region, or maybe from your own region that you had never met before. We try to, if we can, we try to age them together as well, so that they're kind of partnered up in the same age bracket. So you've got daughters that are within like the, 8 to 12 range, all in one cabin with their dads. And then you've got sons, in the 8 to 12 range in another cabin with their dads. Unless you've requested to say, hey, I know this guy, and this guy, and this guy, and we'd love to, cabin together. So I don't know if that really answers your question, but that's kind of how we make it happen here.
Yeah. Well, and it's also the nice thing about partnering up with a Y camp too. You talked about Thunderbird. You've got Toccoa up in the mountains. You've got Haynes here in the Piedmont at the base of Pilot Mountain. They're set up for this. They've been doing it for years. The mission of the Y is dialed right into what you're trying to achieve and successfully achieve with Dad's Camp. And they've got all those answers too. And some of it is just pointing those who are curious to those resources, their websites. They have all those facts, those FAQs on their sites too. And they make it, I'm having planned one camp, not a dad's camp, but they make it so much easier because you can focus on things like check-in and t-shirts and cabin assignments while they manage lay of the land, scheduling, getting things shipped in, so on and so forth. So it's all who you partner with.
Exactly.
Italian job, I'm going to put you on the spot. Actually, before I put you on the spot, I'm going to put Radar on the spot. Radar, ideally, we're going to have a lot of inquisitive minds, guys that want to take the flag and run with it. What's the most ideal way for a dude to connect with you to ping your radar and ask some questions? No pun intended.
All right. So if you want to reach to me directly, and I'll happily take your six, no matter where you are. Even internationally, but if you want me to really help you on the six, you might have to fly me out there. Anyways, if you want to connect with me and learn more about Dad's Camp, you can reach me at F3_radar on Twitter. You'll find me there, or you can also find me on the Nation Slack, Radar from Waxhaw. And so you can connect that way with me directly. Thin Mint still runs the F3 Dad's Camp Twitter account, so you can connect with them as well. Me and or Thin Mint, F3 Dad's Camp on Twitter, or at F3 Dad's Camp.
And we'll drop those into, I'm typing it up right now. We'll have those in the show notes, fellas. So you could just click on those links and head right over to connect with these guys. Italian job, my man, with the challenge worth trying. What you got for us this week?
So I'm going to accept this challenge myself, because last year Radar mentioned this to me. He said, hey man, it's coming up. And I said, I don't know, maybe, I hope I can. And I was the guy who flaked out because it just didn't work out. And I can't do that again. My daughter is now about to be 8 years old. She needs to be at this, and we're going to be there. So before I get to the challenge, I want to mention, guys, as these things come together and they're starting to get planned, chances are there's going to be there's going to be something on Slack for Dad's Camp in your area. So go on there and talk to some of these guys. Hey, this is my first time going. What do I need to know? I've got an 8-year-old daughter. What do I need to bring? Guys are going to be there. So the challenge we're trying is get this message out to your regions, to your home regions, and say, fellas, it's time. The weather's warming up. It's about time that we get our kids and go do something fun. Dad's Camp is coming up. If you have one in your area within an hour or 2 hours, plug in, go. If you don't have one, you're in the middle of Idaho and no one else is around, plan one, get it going. Because if you're interested, another dad is interested. And it's amazing what happens when you have two dads that are interested, and that 2 dads turns into 10 dads, turns into 180 dads. So get the word out to your regions, talk it up in your COTs, reach out to Radar to get some details, ask some questions, but find one that's close by. You have, for the one in the Charlotte area, you still have a few months. There's no excuses. You're not finding this out Friday, morning for a Friday evening. I mean, these things are going to fill up too. So keep in mind, when they open registrations, hit it up, because they're going to reach a max. And then you don't want to look back and have FOMO of, like I've had last year, man, I should have been there. I wish I would have been there. So talk it up.
Don't shit on yourself, Italian Job, or
That's
others.
right. That's right. No one likes to be shit on.
That's exactly right. Radar, on behalf of Italian Job and myself, can't thank you enough. Again, A, for reaching out in the first place and speaking up, but B, for coming on the show and sharing something that is beyond just worth trying, something that's really important. So thanks so much for hitting up the SWT podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Indeed. And guys, if you're listening to this and you're still looking for that one reason to get interested and get excited about Dad's Camp, I'll leave it at this. A wise man once told me that there comes a time in your life that you will definitely miss. And it's the last time that you pick up your child. And so your job as dad is to create as many possible memories before that day sneaks up and past you. And F3 Dad's Camp is one hell of a way to file a bank account worth of wonderful memories in the hearts of your kids. That being said, fellas, I love you both. And to those of you out there listening, be good or be good at it.